Okay, so by now you've probably seen this thing, and like me, you're probably repulsed by it.
Say something, you fake hedgehog!
Meow?
Yes, the first trailer is dropped for the upcoming live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and it looks absolutely god-awful. The most controversial aspect about the film that seems to be making the rounds is the character design, or rather redesign, of Sonic the Hedgehog himself, and that's totally understandable. He looks terrifying, but I think everyone is focusing on the wrong thing here. I understand why the forces that be behind this film thought that this sort of redesign would be the best direction for a live-action Sonic movie. The human eye is very good at detecting when something doesn't look quite right, and this redesign is an attempt to mitigate that fact by making it look more like something we might identify in our brains as real. What we see here is an ill-advised attempt to translate the bizarre and nonsensical cartoon aesthetic of Sonic into something resembling an anatomically possible creature that could hypothetically exist. I mean, it still looks nothing like an actual hedgehog, but this is honestly a decent approximation of how this character might look if it were a real thing in our world. They've buffed out the torso and limbs, made the head smaller, removed the quintessentially cartoonish Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny style white gloves, and finally they've separated his iconic mono eye into two separate eyes, since, you know, that's how eyes work. He's also got fur, like all over. Even the giant quills on the back of his head are now covered in smaller, more realistic quills, implying that this version of Sonic the Hedgehog actually has a misshapen, spiky skull that's made of cartilage, I guess, so it can wobble around when he talks. Like, seriously, think about it for a minute. Imagine if this movie ends up doing really well and gets a sequel. Then for the next one, they decide to put in Knuckles and Tails, similarly designing them so that Knuckles' hair or Tails' whiskers also have a bunch of smaller hairs growing out of them. How weird would that look?
That's no good.
Even when this sort of thing is done well, it's never perfect, despite the fact that the technology has been catching up for years. When I first saw the Detective Pikachu trailer, I remember thinking that these nearly one-to-one translations of the inherently cartoony Pokemon designs look a little bit out of place when put into a real-life environment. And at the time, I wish their designs could have been tweaked a bit to resemble actual animals. Well, that's basically exactly what they did here with Sonic, and I think we can all agree that this is way, way worse. The problem, ultimately, is that this design gets hit with the worst of both worlds. It neither looks like something that exists in our world, nor does it look like Sonic the Hedgehog.
So what do? First, you say no!
I think that these hundreds and hundreds of fan-edited screenshots from the trailer are kind of missing the forest for the trees. A Sonic the Hedgehog movie should never have been live action to begin with. Think about it. Sonic is a heavily, heavily stylized cartoon character that was never designed with a realistic three-dimensional environment in mind. That didn't stop Sega from trying to push him into one for years, but eventually they backed off. There's a reason that the upcoming Super Mario Bros. Movie that's currently in pre-production is going to be animated. It's the same reason most of the 3D Pokemon don't look quite right in Detective Pikachu, though the movie itself looks quite good. Come on back next week for the review. Hell, it's the same reason that it was impossible to take anything in that atrocious Dumbo remake seriously. It's a lot easier to accept that you're watching an elephant fly around with its giant ears when it's a cartoon flying elephant. Like it or not, a lot of cartoon designs just don't mesh very well within a live-action environment. The Sonic the Hedgehog games ultimately boil down to a blue anthropomorphic hedgehog who runs at the speed of sound, saving cute and cuddly animals from a crazy scientist who kidnaps them and puts them into robots he uses for world conquest. Even with the crappy redesign for live action, the mere premise and existence of Sonic is so inherently outlandish and silly that it seems like this entire movie is being built around how absurd it would be if such a character were transported into our world. So, instead of being able to adapt the actual source material and all the things that its fans love about it, they're sort of shoehorned into making this movie into a crappy buddy comedy where Sonic is palling around with James Marsden. God damn it, James, you're so much better than this. That involves the military and all this other crap.
The military has mistaken me for the likes of you!
You just know there's gonna be a scene where Sonic meets an actual hedgehog and he's gonna go, "Hey James Marsden, what's this thing? Isn't it weird looking?" Seriously, I'd bet money something like that happens. How much more awesome would a Sonic the Hedgehog movie be that could just go all out with its crazy concept, perfect fidelity on its character designs, and everything else? This movie has a $90 million budget and it looks like absolute crap. Compare that to the 2017 Captain Underpants film, which had a $38 million budget and was a visually stunning movie to watch in 3D in the theater that was able to perfectly encapsulate everything silly that I remember liking about those books when I was was 7 into a perfectly good 90-minute family film.
You gotta tell someone you trust, like your parents, your teacher, a police officer.
In conclusion, that's why Sonic looks weird. The movie looks terrible, and I can't wait to tear it apart in November. But if you like this video, you'd be doing me a huge favor if you could hit the like button, subscribe for more if you're new, and ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a comment down below letting me know any of your thoughts about the new Sonic the Hedgehog trailer, and check out some of this other awesome stuff I've got up on my channel. As always, thanks so much to all of you guys for watching, and take care.